We'd like to welcome to the show Brian Kelly, and Brian's out of New Hampshire. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. Great to be here.
So a few weeks ago, we've been talking about a multi-use room theater versus a dedicated theater, and both Braden and I are on the side of a multi-use theater because I think it lends itself to entertaining a little bit more. Secondly, a dedicated theater costs a little bit more money, and you need a little more space that only has one purpose. So Brian sent us an email saying, hey, I've got a multi-use theater that I'd like to share. So that's what we're going to do today. And Brian has filmed a video. We're going to go through that video. We're going to pause and stop, pause and play like we've done other ones in the past. So let me bring up his screen. Okay, so now we should be looking at your screen. You should be able to see my screen of your, I think we're looking down towards your basement or something.
Yes, this was just to make Braden jealous because I'm in New Hampshire, so we have basements out here.
Nice.
And it was unfinished last year, and we said, let's make use of this because we both work from home and we wanted a dedicated space. So yeah, this is our newly finished basement.
Okay, and so we'll just move it forward, and we're just kind of walking. So you got multiple rooms down here.
Yeah, and basement layouts, they're kind of limited by where the posts are, the supporting posts and whatever on the foundations. So you kind of have to get creative. There's water closet kind of thing with the septic system or whatever, and the filtration system, and there's all kind of electrical stuff. So you kind of you like to wall it off, but not feel like a basement if possible.
Yeah, gotcha. So this will even make Braden a little more jealous because not only do you have a basement, you've got multiple rooms down here. So we'll be walking into your theater or your multi-purpose room.
Right. Now this is with all lights turned on, and it was also snowing, so it was blindingly bright. And I took the video at that point because I wanted to show people, even with like insane brightness, how viable it is to have a projector system.
Okay, excellent. And let's see, I think you focus on the seating a little later on, so we won't really mention it. You're just kind of giving us a view of the entire layout here.
Mm-hmm.
What size is your screen?
It's 111 inches, which is very precise because we had, a very particular kind of furniture to work with and ceiling height. So we maxed it. You can see we maxed it right to the centimeter.
Yeah, 111 inches is actually pretty big. And, the other day I was at Costco and I even tweeted this, that there was the 98-inch TLC. I think it was $1,650, but the box was pretty massive. And so when you consider the amount of packaging required to get this 111-inch screen with the projector, it's so much less than if you were to put the large format TV on there. And plus, I don't know how you'd get a big TV down there unless you come through one of those windows or something.
Well, yeah, there's sliding doors on the side, so we could have done it, and we considered it. But what we ended up thinking was the feel of a projector, and I think you even covered it on the show last year. Reflected light has a kind of it's less, or maybe it's more nostalgic, but the reflection from the projector screen feels more inviting than, direct LEDs or whatever blasting photons at you.
That's interesting. There are some studies on that, and they say it's less fatiguing. I don't, we'll let the psychologists figure all that stuff out. But I agree that there is a different feel when you see something projected versus it coming at you directly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we stopped here on your speakers, the subwoofer and one of your speakers anyway.
Right, and so I went with freestanding. I had looked into all the kind of options around perforated screens and hiding things, or on wall, in wall, and I've done various things like that in the past in other houses that we lived in. But what I really wanted to optimize for was, at least for the front stage, was upgradability. So decent speakers, but I want to be able to switch things out, audition new ones, and try things out if in the future I get kind of tired of things. So I didn't want to be boxed in, literally, with things hidden behind a frame. And also perforated screens were more expensive. And I was just like, you know what? I'm okay. Since our kids are a little older, no one's going to be accidentally pulling down a speaker like they would have when they were like 2 years old or something.
Yeah, and the upgradability is a big factor. Pretty much you disconnect the speaker cable, you move the speakers in, you take the old ones out, move the new ones in, and tune the room, and you're done. If they were in, like you said, boxed in, now I'm sure you would have the margin for bigger and different speakers, but it's still a little bit more difficult to
For sure.
do. And what kind of subwoofer?
The fronts are all SVS, and that's an SVS SB1000. It's fine. It's it's not going to win any awards. It's one of those subwoofers that you can tell it's doing things, but it's your brain is thinking, oh, the subwoofer just thumped,
Yeah.
instead of, oh wow, that's a car, running over a bridge or something. It reminds you that it's a little muddy sometimes, but it's effective. When you watch Top Gun Maverick or something bass heavy, it'll do the job.
So I have one of those in my family room, and I have augmented that with butt shakers because I want to feel it. And with that, and you know what? It's no knock against the subwoofer. It's not a large subwoofer. It just kind of gives you that extra bass that you're talking about. But I wanted to feel it, and I had no space for one of their larger subwoofers. So I augmented it with a butt kicker system in the seats. And I'm looking at yours. I'm thinking, yeah, we could do the same thing with yours.
I'm definitely, it's going to be one of my first upgrades, is one of those transducers or butt kickers or whatever. Those towers are SVS towers, and they go pretty low. So the crossover point is kind of, it's pretty low already. And it's really, I just need a subwoofer or something to take me down below 30 hertz in a capable way, and not be muddy or mushy sounding.
That is a good point. I've got some KEF speakers that go down really low, and the subwoofer, just as you said, just gives it that little extra push, because it's a very, on those speakers, the KEFs, and I'm sure the same with these SVS, it's a clean sound, but it's not you're not going to feel it in your chest. So that's why I do have an extra subwoofer in that room that can make the walls rattle.
Right.
All right. So one of the benefits that we talked about with a multi-purpose room, you've got yourself a sink here, microwave, and it looks like a wine refrigerator, or maybe just a regular old refrigerator there.
Yeah, it's a beer and wine fridge. And it was one of our goals, was to have it be a kind of a social room if we want to entertain, or if kids, as they're growing older, want to bring people over and just kind of not be in the main part of the house, so they can have some private, time with their friends. And it works really well. Like, it's probably not what most people are going to do. They're not going to want to have a sink or closet space or fridge stuff right beside their screen. But honestly, you don't even think about it, especially once the lights are off. If it's dark, you don't even realize it's there. But there's a secondary benefit, which is that there's great sound diffusion, right? All these sort of irregular surfaces. It's not if it was a blank wall, you'd have direct reflections and weird filtering and kind of frequency issues. But it actually makes it asymmetrical and diffused, so it actually sounds better, I think.
Yeah, well, that's a very good part of, when you have just a rectangular room, you do need to put up some sound treatments, and this, in one essence, is a sound treatment. But yeah, I think when I went through this, I probably would put up a few others, and you may be doing that down the road. But you also have carpet down here, which is a big help. The microwave, I guess you can make popcorn down there, and then if somebody spills something or you want to wash your hands, I think it's a perfect setup. But and the other thing is, not necessarily for movies, but if you're watching a sporting event or something like that, where it doesn't matter if you're really making a lot of noise, or take your attention away from the game, or a car race or something, it's the perfect environment for that.
For sure, definitely. And there's a whole boat of snacks up in those closets that are easily accessed.
Nice. Let's see what else. We'll come over this side here. I think you focus on let's stop here. So this is the doors the sliding door that we were talking earlier, that you can get the larger format TV in and out. But as you mentioned earlier as well, there's snow on the ground. It's very bright in there. But I do notice you've got curtains. And I think later on in the video we see them pulled, so that will help darken the room. You think you can do a little bit more with like total blackout shades or something?
Yeah, so there's basically 3 phases to the video. This is the full brightness, all the lights turned on, the snow outside, full daylight. And the second part is I just basically turn all the blackout shades, pull them across or pull down the shades. And then the third one is at nighttime. You can see what it's like in full, zero light. So, they're blackout shades. Do they leave some, little bits of brightness? Yeah, a little bit. But honestly, I have tried on a bright day, closing everything and seeing how it looks, and it's 90% of the way to what it's like at night. It feels really good.
All right.
And I am looking at Lutron just announced the Caseta line of powered shades. So I love Lutron Caseta, and have Lutron Caseta light switches in this part of the house. I'm dying to see if they, when the first reviews come out, if they're actually any good, because I'll definitely want some automation on that.
Yeah, so for me, Lutron Caseta saved my house because I had so many Wi-Fi devices in here. Things were always messing up when I went over to the Lutron Caseta, because that runs on the 900 megahertz frequency, which is like garage door openers. It goes a long way. There's not a lot of interference in there. The Lutron Caseta products I have are the most reliable in this house anyway. Okay, so we're looking at a projector. What kind of projector are we looking at?
That's the Epson LS 11000. It's a 4K projector. It's a fabulous projector. And I wanted to avoid getting a bulb projector. I didn't want to have light, diminishing over time. Also, with kids turning things on and off a lot, like, I didn't want it cycling too often. And with a bulb projector, that might be problematic. But just the reviews on this thing and the price performance point was just so good. It's just one of my favorite purchases in the home theater world ever. Love it.
And we'll have the entire list of the devices that Brian's got in his room, and I think you included prices as well, so we can get a total rundown on the cost. Now, you've got in-wall speakers for the back, and I noticed you had some in front in the ceiling as well. What kind of are these SVS as well?
No, actually, bit of a mix and match on the back. Mix and match. So I got a good deal on some KEF in-wall speakers for the 2 rear surrounds that you can see there. They're just, pretty typical sort of in-wall speakers. They're really meant for sort of rear surrounds. And then the ceiling speakers, so it's a 512 system, so there's 2 high channels. The ceiling speakers are Sonance Mag Series speakers. I wasn't going to go crazy on ceiling height speakers. I'd never had height speakers before, but I know that there's very little that'll go through it. It's really not going to, you're not going to have much stuff going through it. And even then, it's going to be more ambient sounds, like a whoosh or whatever, not heavy duty kind of sounds like the fronts would have to deal with. So, but I got a great deal on those and was very happy with them. And now when I listen to Atmos stuff, I love the height channels, and I think it works great.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, and we've said this many times. The most important thing to keep the same is your speakers across the front, the left, center, and right. So it'll kind of give you the best kind of tone. And when you're listening to music, you're probably listening to your left and your right speakers in stereo mode. The other speakers are providing ambiance. They need to be good, but they can have a different tone, if you will. So I'm fine with mixing and matching in that area, although a lot of purists are not, but I'm totally good with that.
Mm-hmm. One thing I should point out as well is how, so this room didn't exist before, the basement was done. It was pure concrete on the floor, like no walls at all. What we had to do was try and isolate the sound from this room as much as possible, because both myself and my wife work at home. And also when the kids go to sleep at night, we want to be able to go in here and have a decent experience and not wake everybody up. If we had done a room within a room, which would be like the perfect isolation and complete silence outside, we would have lost so many inches on the ceiling height. It just wouldn't have been viable. So what we did instead was we had the contractor put up the drywall on these metal strips, so that the drywall is not mounted to the joists or the studs. It's kind of suspended, so there's very little transmission of sound from the drywall as the speakers, emanate, as the sound comes out from the speakers. It doesn't transmit through to the studs, which is really good. And also on the ceiling, that suspended ceiling there's these special acoustic wires that kind of dangle it so that it's also not transmitting upwards. And then the insulation is really like extra thick, extra kind of weighty kind of insulation that's within the drywall. So all of that done, yeah, you can still hear it if you crank it like way beyond reference level, but the theater is mostly, I would say, like 60%, isolated sound wise.
Yeah, excellent. And when you are building it from scratch, you have the opportunity to do stuff like that. If you take a room that's already been built, let's say one of your children moves out and you say, I'm going to turn his room into a theater. Well, now if you don't rip everything off the walls, you're just going to live with transmitting sound throughout the house. But yeah, that's a good point. All right. So then I think we're going to look at your seating here, and there you've got a cup holder, and you could go, oh, you went really fast there, but I think that was just chargers.
Yeah, we had a criteria. You had to have the 3 C's, chargers, comfortable, and cup holders.
Perfect. Cup holders is important because when you're sitting and you have something to drink, you don't want to just hold it the whole time. And I think every seat has a place where you could put something down. I guess you could have also put a coffee table in front of you, but that would take a little bit off.
So I'm nervous about putting a coffee table there because you might have comb filtering then as frequencies hit it and then bounce, and then they're sort of arriving out of phase and whatever. But
yeah, maybe.
But the one thing I'm really happy about is the second seat on that couch is dead center, and that's my seat, of course.
I was thinking maybe the recliner over there, but they all recline, so who cares?
All recline,
right? Yeah. All right, and I think now we're gonna see. This is, so before we go, this is with the window shades drawn.
Right, same time of day as we just saw, but with all those stuff. And I think the lights are on, and then I ask S Lady to turn off the lights so you can see the difference in the video image.
Yeah, see, okay, so same brightness, and that now looks like all you do is have a screen floating in space.
Right, and that's middle of the day. I think it was lunchtime and very bright outside. Shout out to No Country for Old Men. It's now my favorite demo disc. There's a new 4K release from Criterion. Okay, so the lights just came back on. That demo disc is incredible. So now it's shipped nighttime. So now it's fully nighttime with the lights on inside.
Yeah, so you can walk around. Wow, it's just like
and then
movie theater. Yeah,
and it's incredibly lifelike. The movie's great, but that projector is just, 10 out of 10.
How much did the projector cost? Just, I know it's going to be in the description list, but if someone's listening right now or watching.
Yeah, so that projector runs for, I think, just shy of $4,000. Now there's another model, the LS12000, which is another $1,000. And I was like, what do you get for that extra $1,000? You get slightly more brightness, which would be good if it was an always bright room, but in a dedicated or slightly dedicated room like this, I really didn't see the benefit of going for the higher model.
Yeah, agree. It's where Braden would go for the brightest because he's got a room that they use the projector for daylight viewing, and he wanted that extra luminance. But in this case, you could either pull your blinds. But that looks really good. And now I'm watching this on YouTube, and you recorded this, so I would imagine in the room it looked even better.
Oh, it's stellar. And one thing you might have seen it is some reflection on the ceiling. The ceiling tiles are white. A lot of people online would say, paint them black, get everything dark. But honestly, then it's going to look like a theater, and then we've missed the goal of the room, which is to have it
exactly. And so it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? It's not going to take you out of the movie. You're still going to get engrossed in the movie, even though you have a little bit of reflection.
Exactly. That's just the back. Basically, I wanted to point out that I did run subwoofer placement for flexibility. There's, 4 places, 2 at the front, 2 at the back. So I can either buy a better subwoofer, buy a second or a third or fourth, or move them around, and I have that flexibility. So that was, when you're building from scratch, pre-wiring for flexibility is key.
All right, good point. Now, just outside the room is your equipment closet.
The world's most minimal.
I was just thinking, you know what? It doesn't take that much, but look at this. This is what you got, and you got a beautiful theater. And this equipment being back here means there's no lights in that TV stand or that table that's just below the screen. So that won't even take you out of the movie.
Right. And, there's an IR blaster, which sits dangling in front of the center speaker. And, what a great thing to pre-wire for. Just run a bit of Ethernet. And it's a $20 device, a little receiver, So if I'm using a non-Bluetooth remote, like the Blu-ray player remote or maybe the Denon remote, if I ever need to use that, I just point it at the center speaker and it blasts it out through these little blasters to the thing. So it allows me to hide everything, which is great. But most of the time it's the Apple TV remote, because that's what the kids use. And they don't even need line of sight. It's all Bluetooth.
Do you use HDMI control, or do you have a different type of remote control?
That was a great question, because in our other rooms in the house, the kids are so used to HDMI control just magically turning everything on. If we produce a different system here with like 7 remotes and an instruction manual, like nobody would use it. So it had to have the same ease of use for just magically turning on.
So for the Apple TV, that's easy. Do you also have a Blu-ray player connected? I think you said you did.
It scrolls up now. It's the Panasonic UB820, and that everything pretty much has the HDMI CEC stuff now, so it all works.
So great. How do you turn the Blu-ray player on? Do you use the Panasonic remote to control everything? Do you use the Apple remote?
Yes. So I use the Panasonic remote. I might walk in because I'll have to put in the disc. I'll just walk in, hit open, pop it in. And then the moment I do that, everything is turning on, the projector, the amp. But oddly, I can use the Apple TV remote when I'm watching a Blu-ray. I can still use the Apple TV remote for volume or mute, which is really, really useful, because the Panasonic remote is the worst designed remote, and you cannot feel where the buttons are. But the Apple TV remote, we all know sort of where our fingers should land.
Well, that's exactly how I do it in my theater as well. I have my primary watching is with the Apple TV, and when I turn on the Apple TV remote, everything turns on. However, in order to use the Blu-ray, I physically walk up to it, turn on the Blu-ray, and because, like you said, you have to go up there to open the slot to put the disc in, you're going to be up there anyway, so it's not a big deal. Now, will your Apple TV, my Apple TV remote will also pause on my Blu-ray? Will it not do the same for yours?
I haven't actually tried that. I'll report back.
not that I pause that often, but every now and then I get from my wife, what did he just say? And I, rather than trying to talk while it's going, I actually pause and explain it. It's kind of funny. I'm telling her, I think you need hearing aids.
You know what? I'm going to try it. But one thing I want every device to support is the new thing that Apple added recently, which is if you skip back 20 or 30 seconds, it temporarily turns on subtitles if you hadn't got them on. It's the best. Yeah,
that's a great feature on the Apple stuff. I
wish the Blu-ray players would do that too.
So, okay. So now we're looking at your Panasonic, and you've Blu-ray player. There's your Apple TV on the right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's basically a Denon. It's doing the job of preamp, amp, switching, pretty much everything. There's a network switch because there's a bunch of devices that just, I wanted to hardwire Ethernet for everything. And Apple TV 4K, that's about it. So maybe, someday I'll add a gaming console maybe, but what's
that? Is your PC over to the right? What is that? Is that involved in your system at all? Or?
No, that's for work stuff.
So. That's just for work. Okay, so this is more than just your theater closet. It's pretty much all your equipment. Okay, gotcha. So that's a great looking room. And how do you use it the most? Do you guys watch TV in there? Do you watch movies? What's your main use for that room?
It's basically, I would say, 70% movies and 30% TV. Like there's definitely a ceremonial, like, oh, let's go downstairs. You have to walk. and it's bigger. If someone just wants to watch like a quick episode of something, they'll probably just do it in the existing upstairs living room. But this, certainly at the end of the day, I can disappear down there if I want to just, get away and after getting the kids to bed, if I want to watch something or my wife and I want to watch something, it's a very sort of isolated, we're going to go and get some quiet time now downstairs kind of event to do that.
Gotcha. So it's interesting. My media room is upstairs, and that's where my bedroom is. And you would think that's where I'd want to watch TV, because you get into that point where you get a little tired, and you got to walk upstairs and go to bed. Just that walking up the stairs kind of, I wouldn't say takes you out of that slumber, but it you get your heart moving a little bit and some blood moving, and then it's like, okay, now I got to wind down again. So I dream of having a one-story house one day where I could just walk right over to my room and go to bed. But with that said, I don't use it that often, because although it's a smaller screen downstairs, 75 inches, it is by my kitchen where I can get snacks, eat dessert, whatever. And because I have a 5.1 system downstairs as well, I don't feel like I'm missing out on the audio. Maybe if it was a sound bar or something, I'd go upstairs to watch stuff. But now we use that room exclusively for like movies that we want to see, that are spectacles, if you will. So that is my dilemma in the new house we're building, that I want a room where I could do it all, and I haven't come up with a way to do that yet. So I'm worried that I'm still going to have another theater room or media room, whatever.
It's the sort of the unfortunate thing is there's always constraints and there's always trade-offs. Yeah. But as long as we had a sort of the outcome as our idea. Like if we build this and we never use it, that's going to be terrible. And we knew if this was a proper theater, right, where the room was oriented the perpendicular way, like down a long sort of longer hall, then that would just be too formal, if that makes sense. We just probably wouldn't use it except maybe once a week. No,
I get you.
And that just wouldn't work for us.
How long have you had the room for?
Only since late summer of last year. So I actually haven't gone through like spring or early summer to know like what's it like when it's still bright at like 9:30 p.m. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, another thought, and I'm not trying to discourage you, but when we first built this room, we were up here all the time, and then as years gone by, it was less and less and less. Now it is when I'm like watching the World Series, we watched up here, the Super Bowl, we watched up here. It's like big event types of things, but yeah. We'll have to touch base in a few years to see how often you use it. Now, how old are your kids? I'm not trying to get personal.
No, they're 8 and 11. So
Okay, so when they get older and they start having their friends over from school, in high school days, it'll return to being used a lot again as well.
100%.
So that's kind of how it was. My daughter would have her friends, and they all wanted to come to our house because we had the big screen, and they'd all sit up there. And the problem for me, which you're not going to have, is it's close to my room. And I'm like, turn that down. I'm trying to go to sleep. So, well, Brian, we really thank you for sharing with us. And we will have all this information on our website, htguys.com. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And Brian, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.